Slow, introspective tone. Ambient strings hum beneath the narration. There's something about an empty theater that haunts the soul. Not because it's silent, but because you can still hear the echoes of 1,000 ovations. At the heart of Manhattan's historic Moreland Theater, the velvet seats sat untouched, and the once blazing marquee was dimmed to a ghostly flicker. The stage, dust-kissed and yearning, missed the man who had lived and breathed his life upon it, Sebastian Cross. A master of the craft, he was Shakespeare reborn, Hamlet in one breath, Lear in another. But behind his enunciated lines and carefully timed tears, few knew the shadow that followed him backstage. The papers called him a forgotten legend, a man who peaked too soon, trusted too much, and vanished too quietly. But that would change. And it started on the night of his last bow. Sebastian was pacing his creaky dressing room, a mirror framed with light bulbs flickering like fireflies around his reflection. The script lay unopened on his vanity. Instead, he stared at a black leather satchel, locked, zippered, and filled with a weight heavier than guilt. Inside, stacks of cash, neatly bundled and pristine. $4.1 million. Untaxed, untraceable, unexpected. He hadn't stolen it. Not in the traditional sense. But it wasn't his either. Every actor wears a mask. But what happens when the mask becomes more honest than the man? Sebastian Cross wasn't always a man in the shadows. Once, he owned the spotlight. A Tony nomination at 26. A tragic hero by 30. A recluse by 40. But there was always one man who knew where to find him. Marcus Vail, an ex-financier turned underground producer, known in closed circles as the Architect. Not of plays, of schemes. That night, as city lights smeared the windows of Sebastian's fifth-floor walk-up, a knock came. Deliberate. 3 times. Sebastian opened the door. Marcus stood there, rain-soaked trench coat, steel briefcase in one hand, a smug grin on his aging face. Still pretending to be poor, Sebastian? Still pretending to be clean? Sebastian fired back. They sat in silence. Scotch poured into 2 glasses. Marcus opened the briefcase. Inside, bundles of crisp $100 bills. Beside them, a small ledger. Black cover. No markings. Just initials, SV. That's your cut, Marcus said simply. I didn't sign anything, Sebastian replied. Marcus leaned forward. No, but your name funded a dozen shell companies and a Broadway investment trust. You gave me access. That's more than a signature, my friend. That's collaboration. Sebastian stared at the cash, then at his own trembling hands. He had never stolen a dime. But 2 years ago, when Marcus asked to use his fading fame to lure in investors for a revival fund, Sebastian had agreed, desperate to keep the theater alive. He didn't know it was a front. Now the SEC was sniffing. The feds were watching. And Marcus, he was washing his hands. You either disappear with the money, Marcus said coldly, or you take the fall when this curtain drops. The greatest trick the actor ever learned was convincing the world he was still on stage. A cello moans underneath a ticking clock. Fog rolls across the bridge as footsteps echo softly. The next morning, Sebastian Cross vanished. No forwarding address. No goodbye calls. His understudy was informed of a permanent leave of absence. The theater world shrugged, another tortured actor burning out too soon. But Marcus Vail knew better. He had watched Sebastian slip out of that apartment window at 3:17 a.m. Dressed in dark jeans, faded hoodie, carrying nothing but a duffel bag and an old prop trunk. Inside the trunk, not scripts, not costumes, just silence. And $4.1 million in clean bills, all wrapped in stage directions. Sebastian didn't run far. Not at first. He headed south, into small towns where no one asked questions if you paid in cash and smiled like a local. He shaved his beard, cut his hair, dyed it black. Even changed the way he walked. Less elegance, more shuffle. He became Tom Vail. Retired carpenter. Widowed. Quiet. But what he didn't know was that Marcus left a trail. The shell companies were collapsing one by one. Investors were screaming. A whistleblower from the Broadway Trust had turned state's evidence. And someone, somewhere, had mentioned Sebastian's name. A U.S. Marshal was now on the case. And not just any marshal, Agent Delia Cross, an investigator with a particular knack for theatrical cons and white-collar vanishings. If he staged a disappearance, she said to her team, then we need to figure out what act he's in and what scene he's rehearsing. Meanwhile, back in a dusty Tennessee town, Sebastian was rehearsing something all right, not for an audience, but for a confession. He began keeping a journal. Not for absolution, but legacy. Detailing every move Marcus made, every transaction he was looped into, every lie he helped sell. He planned to leave it anonymously, somewhere public. Somewhere it couldn't be buried. But the guilt was crawling higher. And time was running short. Because at a Greyhound terminal on the edge of town, a woman with sharp eyes and a federal badge stepped off the bus. The wind howls through broken shutters. A train rumbles in the distance. The town is still. Too still. The town of Ash Hollow, Tennessee, hadn't seen anything strange in years. That changed when Agent Delia Cross walked into the diner. She ordered black coffee, no cream, no sugar. Then she slid a faded photograph across the counter to the waitress. "You seen this man?" The waitress, older, kind, paused. Her eyes flickered just a little too long on the photo. She didn't answer, but that hesitation? It was enough. Delia tipped, smiled, and walked out without finishing her coffee. Elsewhere, Sebastian, or Tom as the locals called him, was repairing a church door. Quiet work. Honest work. But as he hammered the last nail, he noticed something strange. A car. Parked. Same spot, 3 days in a row. Same tinted windows. No one ever got out. He didn't panic. Not yet. But that night, he didn't go home. Instead, he circled the block, disappeared into the woods, and returned through the back alley of the old boarding house where he rented a room. Inside his closet, wrapped in a dusty costume cloak, the duffel bag still waited. He hadn't touched it in months. But now, he opened it. Bundles of bills, stacked with military precision. Still there. Still whole. But there was something else, a folded envelope. One he didn't remember packing. He pulled it out slowly. No handwriting. Just a wax seal. Inside, a single index card. "You were never the lead. You were always the mark. MV." Marcus Vale had left him a message. Which meant, he knew. Sebastian stumbled back, breath caught in his throat. The room spun. How long had Vale known? Had this all been part of some twisted, extended performance? Suddenly, the money felt radioactive. And then came the knock. 3 taps. No rhythm. No follow-up. Just silence. He froze. Looked through the peephole. Nothing. Another knock. Lower this time. Then a slip of paper slid under the door. "The show's not over. Not yet. 11 p.m. Train yard. Come alone." Sebastian read the note twice. Then burned it. But at 10:53 p.m., he zipped the duffel bag, put on his coat, and vanished into the night. Every great act needs a twist. And Sebastian. He was walking straight into his. A steady drizzle falls on rusted train tracks. One lamp flickers in the distance. The night holds its breath. At 11:01 p.m., Sebastian stepped onto the wet gravel of Ash Hollow's abandoned train yard. The bag hung from his shoulder, heavy but familiar. He didn't need a flashlight. He knew the layout. He had rehearsed this walk in his mind a dozen times. He moved between rusting freight cars until he reached the one with a faded logo, MV and Sons Freight Lines. Coincidence? He didn't believe in them anymore. Inside the open boxcar, a single lantern illuminated a chair. And in it, someone waited. It was Marcus Vale. Older now. Thinner. His eyes had the sharp, glassy clarity of a man who had nothing left to lose. "You came," Marcus said, not looking surprised. "You sent the note," Sebastian replied. "I sent a curtain call." The silence between them wasn't awkward. It was loaded, like a pistol on a mantelpiece. Sebastian didn't move. "I suppose you know," he said, "that you stole the money." Marcus chuckled. "Of course. I gave it to you." Sebastian flinched. What are you talking about? Marcus stood slowly, back slightly arched with age, but every movement calculated. That final performance, the masquerade of truth, wasn't a play. It was a test. A test. You think I didn't notice your resentment? Your bitterness after I took the lead from you in King's Trial? You were talented, Sebastian, but you never trusted yourself to lead. So I gave you the script of your life. Sebastian blinked, confused. You're saying this was planned? Marcus walked over to the bag. That cash drop. That wasn't cartel money. It was stage money. A prop. Until it wasn't. What? Marcus smiled faintly. I switched it after the final show. Real cash. $4.1 million. Black budget from a production company that no longer exists. Sebastian took a step back. You made me a fugitive. I made you an actor again. Thunder rumbles in the distance. The truth echoes louder than the storm. Marcus explained it all. The investors. The hidden cameras. The art piece they had pitched to bored billionaires. A real man, unknowingly playing himself in a performance that blurred reality and fiction. Sebastian wasn't just part of it. He was it. You became a ghost, Marcus said, and they paid millions to watch you run. You sold me. Sebastian's voice cracked. I launched your greatest role. You stayed in character. Sebastian stared at the bag. Then at Marcus. What now? Marcus's voice was low. The money's yours. You earned it. But your story, it ends tonight. Whether on your terms, or mine. Then he stepped back, pulled out a phone, and tapped Upload Final Episode. The train whistle blows. Lights flicker across the yard. The world is watching now. Sebastian had seconds to choose. A walk away with the money, the world watching, judging, chasing. Or leave it and disappear once more, this time on his terms. He looked up. The cameras in the trees. The drones in the sky. The red blinking lights like distant stars. No, he whispered. Then he tossed the bag onto the tracks. And walked away, hands empty. He never wanted the role. But in the end, he played it better than anyone ever could. The next morning, the bag still lay on the tracks. Torn open, rain-soaked bills fluttered in the wind. But the man, gone. The footage Marcus Vail uploaded went viral. Real-life fugitive or performance art. $4.1 stage heist caught on camera. Where is Sebastian Cross? By noon, it had over 28 million views. And just like that, Sebastian was no longer a man. He was a myth. A street performer wearing a papier-mâché mask danced alone in the square. The music was a slowed-down piano version of Send in the Clowns. Tourists dropped coins. And across the street, behind a cafe window, a woman in a trench coat watched closely. Special Agent Evelyn Crane, FBI, retired. But she couldn't stay retired. Not after this case. He didn't take the money, said a younger agent beside her. That's the first clue, Evelyn replied. What do you mean? He's not running. He's directing. The investigation reignites, not because of evidence, but because of silence. No passport hits. No digital trails. No bank movement. But then the letters started. Handwritten. Signed only SC. Each arrived at prominent theaters, museums, and old friends from the cast. Each one contained a riddle, a line of dialogue, or a single cryptic phrase. One read. The stage was never mine. It was always yours. Are you watching now? Online communities exploded. A hashtag The Cross Conspiracy. A hashtag Final Bow Watch. A Sebastian sightings, threads on Reddit and dark web forums. People claimed they saw him in Prague, or Cairo, or in a grainy CCTV feed from a train station in Kyoto. Most were hoaxes, but some too precise, too timed. Marcus Vail, being interviewed on a podcast called The Exit Stage Left. Do you think he's still alive? The host asks. Marcus looks straight at the camera. He was never alive. He was always a character. And what was the name of the character? Freedom. Somewhere in Argentina, a theater reopens under a false name. Opening night's marquee reads, "The Man with No Curtain." Inside, a familiar voice reads the prologue. The lights dim. A single figure takes center stage, silhouetted, his voice warm, rich, deliberate. You thought the show was over. But what if it never began? It wasn't a broadcast. It wasn't a leak. It was a review. In the quiet hours of a rainy Wednesday morning, the Chronicle of Stage and Screen, an elite theater journal read only by purists and professionals, published an unannounced review. No title in their listings matched the play. No theater admitted to hosting it. No tickets had been sold. The review headline, "Sebastian Cross delivers his final bow," and it's masterful. The author, T.H. Sinclair, a critic with a sharp pen and a sharper sense for fraud. Except, he was dead, reportedly passed in 2021. And yet, there it was. A full-page review, evocative, haunting, and unervingly specific. The lights never rose, they shimmered. And when Cross stepped out, he wasn't acting. He was bleeding truth, line by line. The final act did not need applause. It needed silence. If this is goodbye, then all the world's a poorer stage without him. Reddit caught it first. Then Twitter. Then YouTube commentators did 3-hour breakdowns. Where was this play staged? Who attended? How did Sinclair review something no one saw? Interpol flagged the article. London police reopened a dormant file. FBI agent Evelyn Crane got a call from Langley. "You need to see this. Someone's playing chess with us." At first, it felt like art. Then came the QR code. Subtly embedded into the scanned article was a digital breadcrumb. When decrypted, it opened a 6-second video. Sebastian, in a mirror, painting on his own stage makeup. He doesn't speak. He simply looks into the camera and nods once. Behind him, a wall of foreign passports, currency stacks, and an envelope labeled Act 3, Begin. Some said it was pre-recorded. Others believed it was AI-generated. A niche group claimed Cross had died years ago, and the entire saga was being run by a secret cabal of actors. But one thing was clear. Sebastian Cross was now more than missing. He was a global obsession. In dim theaters across Europe, actors began claiming they'd received anonymous envelopes. Each contained a stage direction, cryptic, almost ritualistic. Exit pursued by no one. Curtain rises when eyes close. You are not the role. You are the rewrite. They were signed only with a seal, a black mask, and a burning feather. No one knew what it meant. But all of them followed the instruction. Some vanished from public life. Others were spotted in strange back-alley performances no one filmed, no one ticketed, and no one acknowledged. It was called the Underground Theater. And rumor said Sebastian was directing all of it. Evelyn Crane sits in a dusty private library in Venice, tracing lines on an old map of opera houses built before 1900. "He's building something," she says. "Not a show. Not a legacy. An army." Some plays don't end. They spread. When Evelyn Crane traced the network of vanishing actors and obscure theaters, she discovered something deeper than disappearance. She discovered coordination. It began in Berlin. In an abandoned opera house, one condemned since 1989, over 600 people appeared at 11:57 p.m. sharp. No ads. No flyers. Just whispered invitations. And yet, the seats were full. The curtain lifted with no one on stage. A voice echoed from above the velvet arch. "Every one of you is an actor tonight. Your lines are your lives. Deliver them well." Then a projection began. Sebastian Cross, seated in a candlelit room, eyes hollow, whispering, "I never wanted to disappear. I wanted to dissolve into myth, into movement. You watched me. Now, be me." People stood, clapped, shouted monologues, confessed secrets aloud. One woman began singing opera in a voice she didn't know she had. A man disrobed and claimed he was the ghost of Shakespeare. By dawn, 12 people were missing. By noon, Interpol had blocked all access to the building. Crane got the call. Whatever this is, it's spreading faster than we can track it. In Florence, a museum curator opened a 400-year-old folio collection of banned Renaissance plays. Tucked between the pages, a handwritten script titled The Final Bow, its author listed as S. Cross. Date stamped 1597. A forgery? Maybe. But when Evelyn held the inked parchment, she noticed something off. The monologues inside the play were verbatim what Sebastian had said in his final interview. Word for word. "This isn't a play," Evelyn whispered. "It's a prophecy." From Hong Kong to Buenos Aires, actors, musicians, and former agents began receiving packages. Inside each, a black mask with a red velvet interior, a plane ticket, a single line of a play script, handwritten, cryptic, unfinished, all signed with the seal, Burning Feather. An anonymous street performer known only as Pantomime 44 stepped onto the Charles Bridge and reenacted Sebastian Cross's death scene, though it was never publicly released. He collapsed on cue, and when approached by onlookers, he whispered, "You are part of the performance now." Then he vanished into the river fog. CCTV caught only a silhouette boarding a passing boat. Crane arrived in London. Her next stop, the Phantom Theatre, a place erased from official records after a scandalous fire in 1974. Yet there it stood, rebuilt, reclaimed, waiting. A note pinned to the iron gate read, "Final rehearsal begins when you step inside." S. She pulled out her pistol, her badge, and her trembling breath, and walked in. In this play, not everyone who bows ever leaves the stage. Evelyn Crane stepped inside the rebuilt Phantom Theatre, expecting dust and silence. Instead, music, not recorded, not distant, live. An unseen piano played itself. Curtains shifted like they remembered air. And in the middle of the orchestra pit sat a stage book, thick, leather-bound, bleeding with annotations. She stepped closer. It was open to a scene titled, Act 4, The Resurrection of the Witness. Beside it, written in fresh ink, "Welcome, Evelyn. You're not watching anymore. You're cast." Across Europe, actors thought to be dead, missing, or institutionalized reappeared in pop-up street plays. In Venice, a woman who had vanished in 1992 delivered a flawless Shakespearean sonnet outside St. Mark's Square before vanishing again. In Lyon, a mime who hadn't spoken in decades suddenly broke into full monologue, Sebastian's monologue, before collapsing into tears. They called themselves the cast of The Final Bow. Back in London, Evelyn opened the stage book. The final monologue wasn't written by Cross. It was signed only M. If the audience refuses to change, burn the theater to the ground and let them rise from the ash. This wasn't just about Sebastian. Someone else had rewritten the ending. And it was happening now. During a midnight rehearsal Evelyn snuck into, she saw something strange. Every light cue projected shadows on the back wall that formed words. Backwards. She filmed it and played it in reverse. It spelled out coordinates. Coordinates to Oslo. She flew. Alone. No agency. No backup. In a decommissioned Cold War bunker in Oslo, she followed the coordinates down a spiral staircase cut into the permafrost. There, sealed in a vacuum vault, was a tape labeled, Sebastian Cross, Audition Number 1, 1976. She played it. The boy on the screen, 15, nervous, bright-eyed, stared into the camera. "If I can't be seen as myself, I'll become someone worth watching." Then the footage glitched. The older Sebastian, present day, replaced the young one. "Welcome, Evelyn. You're almost there. But endings are just beginnings with better lighting." Within 48 hours, versions of The Final Bow were being performed simultaneously in a Tokyo's underground train tunnels, an empty cinema in Havana, a military base hangar in Alaska, a floating barge stage in Lagos. Each ended with the same line, never found in any published script. The actor never leaves the stage. Only the spotlight moves. Governments tried to ban the show. Too late. Audiences had memorized it. Actors were being born in real time. Evelyn stood outside a burned-out church in Prague. One of the former Cross actors met her there, an old woman with a veil and no name. She handed Evelyn a red wax-sealed letter. "You've been cast, darling. He's left you the closing scene." Inside was a stage direction written in Sebastian's hand. "One final bow. Not on stage, not on camera, but in truth, where the $4.1 million lies beneath the boards of the world itself." They thought he vanished. But you can't vanish if you're everywhere. The letter Evelyn held wasn't just a goodbye. It was a roadmap. A curtain call with no stage. And no applause. Inside the Royal Theatre's restricted archive, behind shelves of band plays, she found it. A dusty, untouched script labeled "The World, Rewritten, a play in 12 billion acts." But these weren't stage directions. They were coded instructions. Burn page 44 in a public library. Watch who follows. Speak to the red wire in the tunnel at 2:17 a.m. Sebastian Cross hadn't just written plays. He had choreographed a revolution. Then came the final twist. Evelyn followed a handwritten receipt to a bank vault in Zurich. Inside, a duffel bag and a second script, labeled "The Only Performance That Matters." Inside the bag, $4.1 million. And one final message: build the theater where no one watches, only performs. Cross didn't want fame. He wanted freedom. And his masterpiece had just begun.